Hi all, welcome to Cyber Warfare AWS Cloud Red Team course. In this module, we will discuss about the services provided by AWS. The name of the service is EC2, Elastic Compute Cloud. Basically, it's a platform as a service provided by AWS. So what does this service provide? It's provide a platform just like operating system where you can install a different application, you can run a web server, you can run your applications there, or you can use for any other purpose. So basically it's provide you an operating system just like your machines, your systems. It's provide a virtual machines on the cloud. So you can use whatever purpose you want to use. So it's basically a platform as a services. So you can install the application on top of the virtual machine that's provided by AWS. So in this module, we will discuss about what are the components, how we can access it, and how we can exploit those services, and how we can misuse those services if it's not configured properly. Okay, so let's start. So in this section, we will discuss about introduction about what's the EC2. Second thing, we will discuss about the components. It's like what are the components there in EC2, Amazon machine image AMIs, how we can access the EC2 instance, and what are the security groups are there. And in the third section, we will discuss about how we can exploit it, just like how we get the initial access on EC2 instance, how we can use EC2 instance for making the persistence, how we can access the credential from the EC2 instance to perform our red teaming activities, and how we can perform the privilege escalation. Suppose if you don't have enough privilege, how we can use EC2 instance or misuse the EC2 instance to get the higher privilege or to perform the privilege escalation. So we'll discuss each and every section one by one. Okay, so let's start with the first one. So the introduction. So Amazon Elastic Compute Cloud, that means EC2, is a web service that's provide a secure, resizable compute capacity in the cloud. Second thing, EC2 provide a virtual computer on the cloud where user can run their own computer application. So basically it's a virtual machines in the cloud where you can run your own applications. Organization can run their applications or web servers or whatever application they want to run in their server, they can use there in EC2 instances. So EC2 instances, you can see here, have these around these sections. So you can see here these components. Basically this is the EC2 instance. The first and important component is we call operating system. This is the first and important component. What operating system do you use to create EC2 instance? So basically, suppose you can use Windows, you can use Linux. In Windows also you can use a different flavor of Windows or different flavor of the Linux. So basically one thing comes here in EC2 is operating system. Just like if you have your own a virtual machine, what type of operating system you want to use. Second thing which is really important is access. How we can access the virtual machine or EC2 instance from internet. So how the accessibility provide, what type of access is there, what type of access provided by AWS. And suppose if you are performing a red teaming activities, if you know about there is a multiple way to access EC2 instance, how you can access it, how you can use the alternate method to access the EC2 instance. Third thing we have is called public and private IP address. To access the instance, definitely we need either a public IP address or a private IP address. So let's discuss. So if you have a public IP address, how you can access it. If you don't have a public IP address, you have only private IP address, how you can access the EC2 instance. Fourth one, we have storage. So storage, basically, suppose in your computer, in your laptop or your computer, you have hard disk where you store the data, even C drive, D drive, whatever storage you have. Same like in EC2 also, EC2 instance also, we need storage to store our data. So where the storage come from, how the storage look like, how we can attach the storage to EC2 instance, and all these things we will discuss about. And when we're talking about red teaming, definitely because storage is where data is stored. So if you somehow compromise the storage thing, you can access the data, which is critical for an organization. So let's discuss how we can do all these things. Fifth one is a security group. Security group basically is just like your host based firewall, the firewall which is inbuilt there in your operating system. Just like you have a Windows firewall is already there, so how you can control the inbound and outbound traffic. So same like we in EC2 instance, we have a host based firewall which is provided by AWS apart from the operating system firewall, and which will allow or block the traffic. And at the end, this is the VPC where your EC2 instance is running. So sixth one is a VPC, where this is a virtual private cloud where your EC2 instance is running. So basically you have a set of subnets, you divided into CIDR, and you mentioned that okay, this is an instance which is running in this VPC. This is the overview. So VPC basically infrastructures as a services, which is help you to provide a platform as a services. And EC2 is a platform as a services, VPC is infrastructure as a services, which provide infrastructure for a VPC to run, to allocate the IP address, and all these things can be managed by VPC. So we already discussed about VPC. Well, let's discuss about other components one by one. The first one, this is really important, about the Amazon machine image. Suppose you want to run one application, or you want to run one server, or we can say a virtual machines there. What type of operating system do you want to use? That operating system, or we can say the image of the operating system, is basically say AMI, Amazon machine image. Let's discuss about what is this thing there. So you can see there, Amazon machine image is a special type of virtual appliance that is used to create a virtual machine within the Amazon Elastic Compute Cloud. So it's basically used to create a virtual machines. So it's basically a template for operating system, maybe Windows, maybe Linux. In Linux we have a different flavor. In Windows also we have a different flavor. So in Amazon or AWS, we have two kind of AMIs. One is AWS provided AMI, and second one is custom AMI. So suppose if you want to run one EC2 instance, you can use the AMI provided by Amazon. Just like any Linux flavor, Amazon have inbuilt software, inbuilt tools, inbuilt security. All these things can take care by Amazon. Just like all the patches or everything can take care by Amazon, and they provide this AMI. So you can directly pick those AMI and you can run your EC2 instance. Second thing, maybe it's your requirement. You want to deploy something, and you have to customize the AMI. You can take a base image and you can customize the AMI according to your need. So in the future use, you can use the same AMI to create your EC2 instance. So this is this is the purpose. If you want to manage your AMI yourself, all the patching, all these things can be taken care by yourself. So this is the difference between this, how we can create a AMI. So Amazon also provides services called EC2 Image Builder, which is a pipeline, CI/CD pipeline basically, which will create a AMI. It's basically creating the AMIs of to create a EC2 instance. So this is how you can you can use those services to create this thing, because AMI is really important, because AMI help you to understand about what type of data is there. Because if it's a AWS AMI, it will be same for each and every customer. But if it's a customer or custom AMI, that means customer set or customized AMI according to their needs. So maybe they have some credentials, they have some data, or you can use the AMIs to perform a persistency. You can add the backdoor. So what happens if you add the backdoor in AMI? So once they have to, when they need it to create a EC2 instance, they can use the same EMI, and the EMI you already have a backdoor. So this is how you can misuse different functionality to perform a red teaming activities. Okay, so let's discuss about EC2 instance access. So before discuss about EC2 instance access, let's discuss about AMIs. Okay, so you can see here, I'm going to explain here. Let's discuss about AMIs, how it's look like, how you can create the AMI. So You can see here, this is my AWS management console. When we're looking for the services EC2, you can click the services, or you can directly search here Elastic Computing Services. One and the most important thing is you have to be understand about in which region you are running this EC2 instance. You can see here we have these are the regions are there. You can run the EC2 instance in each and every region which is suitable to you. That will help you, just like if you're doing a red teaming activities, you found that there is no EC2 instance in some region, but there is a EC2 instance in other regions. So you have to explore all the regions which is there. So you can see here, when you're talking about Virginia region, there is no EC2 instance is running. But when we're looking for a US East 2 region, you can see here 4 EC2 instances running here. So let's see here AMIs. So currently I have one AMIs. You can build your own AMI. You can use the base image, and you can add your own tools or configuration that you want, and you can use this AMI. But how this AMI will help? Suppose if I want to launch one EC2 instance, this is how you can launch the EC2 instance. This is the AMI which is provided by Amazon Linux 2 AMI. And this is Linux AMI which is provided by Amazon. This is Red Hat AMIs. This is all other Linux. You have Windows AMI as well as. But if you have, so in this AMI, it will be same for each and every customer. You can see here this AMI have these tools software package installed here. This AMI these tools and software and all these things will be packaged here. But if you want that you have a Apache this version, you can create your own AMI and you can use this. So you can see here, if I go for my AMIs, I have only one AMI, and I can select this AMI to create a EC2 instance. So this is how it will help you to create your own AMI, customize the AMI or the template, operating system template. Basically, it's an operating system template according to your need, and you can run each and every instances using those AMIs. There is AWS Marketplace AMIs also. Just like if you want to run Kali Linux, which is not there in default AMIs, but you can use the marketplace. So different vendors also introduce their own AMI to AWS, so you can use those AMI, just like Kali Linux AMI to run there, Kali Linux in the cloud. So this is how you can see. You have a community AMI also. So this is all about the AMIs, how we can use it. But in later section, we will discuss about how we can misuse or how we can perform the red teaming persistency using AMIs. So let's. Okay, I think this is all about the AMI, how you can use. You can create the AMI, which is suppose if your EC2 instance is running there, you have to customize the tool. You can customize it, and after that you can create the AMI on those running EC2 instance, or you can create by yourself. You can customize by yourself, or you can use EC2 EMI builder tool also to build the AMIs. So this is how we can use the AMI. So let's move to the second one, access. This is really important. I said I have a virtual machine there in the cloud, but how can I access? Suppose a red teamer, if I found an alternate way or multiple way to access it, it will be really help to me, because it's not every time you will get a public IP address you can access it. Every time you will get a credential or password to access it. There is a lot more way to access this thing. So you can see here, this is really important. Let's first discuss about Linux as well as Windows. How we can access if we have a Linux based EC2 instance, or how we can access if we have a Windows based EC2 instance. So you can see here in this diagram, suppose we have this Linux EC2 instance, Ubuntu, Fedora, whatever operating system is running there, it will be there. How we can access it? So the first thing you can access is traditional method, that's called a SSH client. So suppose SSH server is running here, and you can use your client to connect to this SSH. So to connecting this thing, by default you need a SSH key, but you can configure to authenticate as a password also. This is a traditional method. You can access it. You can access EC2 instance if they have a Linux operating system. Second thing is you can access through EC2 instance connect. This is new method or new way to introduce by AWS. That means in this case EC2 is just like SSH client or SSH access. In this case you need a key. You have to edit this public key here in authorized key section of server. In this server you have to edit this key's public key. So that means this private key can authenticate here. In this case, suppose if somebody found SSH private key, they can access EC2 instance for a lifetime until we not remove this key or authorized key from the server. So this is it's very critical or it's very dangerous situations, or it's not a best practice to have a permanent passwords or like keys. So what the alternate solution is, they introduce this EC2 instance connect. So in runtime it will create a key pair. It will give you a private key here in your either in a when you're accessing through console, it will be there and it is save the public key for a temporary purpose in your authorized key directory. Same like you can also access through your command and console also, or AWS CLI also. So it will allow you to access through command, through console as well as CLI. So this is how it's really important. Let's discuss how this will work one by one. And third one is as session manager. So session manager will allow you to access EC2 instance from AWS management console without needed any key or password. Why? Because to configure the session manager, we have to install SSM, system manager agents, in each and every machine. So you have to install the agent here. You have to install the agent, and this agent allow you to authenticate without any key or password. So you can directly access through console. So let's discuss one by one how we can do that on Linux machines. You can see here, let's go to EC2. So there are 4 instances is running. You can see there is 4 instances, 3 of the Linux and 1 is a Windows instance. Let's click this instance. Let's click on the connect section. So you can see here there is 3 options to connect it. One is SSH client. That means you have a client. Suppose I am using here a putty. This is my client. You can see here I already have added the key here, loading here. Or you can use this command. So you need a private key, and this is a persistent method. It means it is a permanent credentials to you until you not remove the credential or public key from authorized key section on the server. So you need a private key, you need a username as well as the IP address. That's it. You can connect it. So this is a traditional method each and every operating system, generally Linux operating system, have to authenticate using SSH client. Okay, so this is first thing. Now second thing, how you can access it, EC2 instance connect profile. That means you have to assign one role to the users. It's basically user need one role. Why? Because user have to authenticate or have to rights to added their key on Linux machine, and that key will be added for a temporary purpose. So suppose if I want to connect, you should have at least public IP address, and you are connecting because I'm logged in as a root user, or the user which have administrator rights. That means administrator already have this rights. So suppose if you want to access through CLI, the user which you want to authenticate should have a rights, so they can add the the key on the Linux EC2 instance for a temporary purpose. You need to just directly connect. How does it work? It will send, it will like what is happening in the background. It will check if you have a rights or not, the user which you authenticate. If you have a right, it will generate two key, or means SSH key pair, just like you use a SSH key gen to generate the key. It will generate two key, and it will send a public key and added this public key to EC2 instance, a Linux machine authorized key, the file which have. So that means it will be only accessible until your session is, not disconnected. So once your session is disconnected, key will be removed from the authorized key. So that means it will be accessible for a short period of time, or it's just like a temporary credential, or just like we have a temporary credential, it's like a temporary key to authenticate it. You can use SSH console just like I used here, or you can use the CLI to doing all this stuff. So you can see here I authenticated to EC2 instance Linux machine without any credentials. So this is the second method. This is the same like SSH client, but the benefit is in this method the key which you have is used for a temporary purpose. In the first scenario we saw where you need a key for a permanent. That means the key which you have will be there and it won't be removed or won't be disable until you are not going to remove from the EC2 instance explicitly. This is how the difference between the instance connect profile as well as SSH client we have. In this case, definitely the user which you want to authenticate should have a rights, EC2 instance connect rights, so that it will allow you to add your key for a short period of time. So this is about how we connect through EC2 instance connect profile. Now third one is the session manager. This is really important. Session manager, to authenticate using session manager, you no need any key. You can see connect to your instance without SSH key or a Bayesian host. Sessions are secured using AWS key management service key. You can log in session commands in detail of a Amazon S3 bucket or CloudWatch, configuring sessions on the session manager. So you can see here, so basically what it does, you have to install SSM, system manager agents, on each and every EC2 instance which you want to authenticate, and you have to assign the rights to the instance that this instance have a rights to authenticate without any key or credential. But it is only applicable when you are accessing through portal. It is not applicable when you are accessing through CLIs. So it will only work when you have a portal access. And second thing, the instance should have a public IP address attached to it. It will only work once you have a public IP address attached to it. Or we can say the internet connection. Basically, it will only work if you have an internet connections. Not the public IP address is necessary, but definitely you should have internet connection using NAT or any other methods. If you have internet connection, you can connect it through this thing. You can see here, if I click on the connect, it is use system manager and it will call to the SSM to authenticate to this machine. So you can see here I access it, and the rights you have SSM user. You can see here, this is a private IP address which is mentioned here. This is running as a SSM user authentic, because SSM client we installed on each and every machine which we want to access through this authentication mechanism. So this is how you can access the Linux machine, all the three methods which is mentioned here. So now let's discuss about how we can access a Windows machine. Yeah, so you can see here, just like we already discussed how we can access the Linux machine. Now let's discuss about the Windows machine. So you can see here this is Windows EC2 instance. Windows 2012 server, 16 server, 19 server, how we can authenticate? The first and traditional method is using RDP. This is a really traditional method. You need a RDP. In RDP you need either RDP file, or you need a credentials as well as IP address, which should be a public IP address, and you can authenticate it. Second thing, the same like we discussed for Linux, session manager. So you have to install the SSM agent in machines which you want to authenticate, and you can use the console to authenticate it. Let's discuss how we can authenticate it. So you can see here I already have the file where we already have the IP address, all these things. So you can directly click it here. You can see here, this is the IP address of your Windows machine which you want to authenticate. You need a username as well as password. I already saved it. It will take some time, and yeah, you can see here is authenticated to this Windows machine. And that's all how you can access the Windows machines. So if you are doing a red teaming and you found the credential or IP address, you can access the Windows machine using RDP. So this is the one method. What is the second method? Similar, like we have EC2 instance running here. This is a Windows machine we have. When you connect it here, you can see there is only two options. One is RDP client, that means we already discussed. And second thing, we need a session manager. Here also you need to deploy the agent, SSM agent there in Windows machine, and you have to assign the roles to this particular instance so that it will allow you to authenticate it. So as soon as you click on the connect, it will take some time and it will give you the PowerShell console here. Yes. So you can see it's saying SSM users, the same user, because it's running as a SSM users. So this is how you can authenticate EC2 instance, either Windows based or Linux based, using different method. Because all this method you should aware, so you can use your red teaming activities. Even if you don't found any valid credential or key, you can, if you have access on console, you can still access the EC2 instance using SSM. So this is really important and all these things. Okay, so let's move to the next one. Okay, next one is security groups. So basically, what does means a security group? So a security groups act as a virtual firewall for your instance to control inbound and outbound traffic. So basically, it's a work as a firewall, which will control your inbound and outbound traffic. So whatever port you want to expose or whatever port you want to block, and all these things you can do through a security group. Security group act as an instance level, not the subnet level. So just like we discussed about VPC, we found that there is a NACL, network access control list, which will work on the subnet level or VPC level. So you can block the traffic on the VPC level. Doesn't matter how many instances are there, but in security group you can block the traffic on instance level. If it's allowed on the sometime if it's allowed on the subnet level or VPC level, still you can block and at the instance level. So network ACL is act at the subnet level. Yeah, that's we already discussed. So suppose you have a VPC, we have NACL attached to this VPC. Just like this VPC, we have an NACL which is attached to this VPC, which will allow to allow all traffic, all inbound and outbound traffic by default. You can use this EC2 instance security groups, this groups, to control the traffic. So just like if you have 22 and 80 port exposed and you want only 80 port to be exposed to the public audience, you can restrict or you can disable this port. So the port is, the service is running, but nobody can access from the internet. And you can also restrict it from the set of IP range. So only these IP range can access it. So this is how it is really important to have a security group and how we can access it. So let's check how we can use security group. Let's terminate this session. So you can see here we have an instance. Suppose in this same instance, public instance, when you're looking for a security, you found there is a security group which is attached to this instance. Let's see what rule is applied. So there will be two rules. One is two section. One is inbound rule section, and second one is outbound rule section. So inbound, who can access it? You can see 3389. That means RDP port is only only accessible or only allowed. So anybody from the internet can only access the RDP port. If you have other services running there, they won't access it. You can even control this source IP also. Who can access it? You can custom. You can anywhere. You can set them only the IP which is by IP assigned to here. So this is how you can do all these things. This is for inbound traffic. Who can access it? What about outbound traffic? This EC2 instance, is there any IP you want to be blocked? So this EC2 instance won't connect, or you can connect all the outgoing traffic. So it's up to you how you can customize, or up to the requirement of the organization, how they want to use this EC2 instance to perform all these operations. So, but this will really help in your red teaming activities, because we found that in some cases we found that this EC2 instance, which is doesn't allow to access from the public IP address or anywhere. So it will bound. It can only be accessed from set of IPs. So that means you have to find out the way to laterally move on those IP, and then you can access this instance. So this is how you can do all these operations. And you should aware about this security group. So security group is basically attached or associated with instance level. So each and every instance have a different security groups. This is for, we have a Windows instance, we have this security group. Let's move to the another instance. Or you can see these are the security groups there, and which VPC they exist and which instance they are assigned. So you can see when I'm looking for this first security group, this one, so you can see here only 80 and 22 port is allowed. You can see here it's allowed 22 port for all the public audience, but 80 port on the IP which is specific assigned to me. So this is how it's really important how you can do, or how it's assigned to you, what instance is attached, and all these things. This is really important from a red team perspective to understand all the scenarios. So I think that's all for these sections. Let's discuss how we can misuse it, how we use a different techniques to perform a different attack, or different a red team life cycle phase in our to misuse the EC2 instance services. So thank you so much for watching this video.